So, welcome to the brandtuned podcast, Lucy. It's great to have you here. Um, Tell us a bit more about you and your background and what you do, please.
Well, what I do now is I'm mostly a publisher, and I founded Rethink Press with Joe Gregory 10 years ago. And actually, we're kind of celebrating the end of our 10th year. So we started Rethink Press as a two-person business with Joe and I doing absolutely everything. And we now have a 50+ strong team of coaches and editors and designers and publishing professionals who work all around the world. And we've published over 500 books. So we're feeling a bit sort of smug, really, I suppose. Yes, at the end of this year, it's been it's worked out well. We didn't know how it would work out, but starting from the beginning of my career many years ago, I started off as a magazine publisher. I founded a performing arts, a theatre magazine in Australia, and ran that for 8 years, which was kind of a mad thing to do because Australia is a very small population and a very huge space, and performing arts and theatre is quite a minority interest. But those were the days when you could get lots of arts funding. So we ran that for 8 years. And then I came back to England and went into television. So I've done a lot of writing for TV and video and producing stuff. So that was all quite exciting and interesting. And then I moved kind of accidentally into what was just beginning to be called work-life balance. And actually, funnily enough, although I'd always wanted to write a book, I hadn't up to that stage. But when I became a work-life balance consultant, I got commissioned to write a book, an actual book by an actual publisher. And so that was my first book. And so, yes, and I discovered then, although I wasn't really kind of thinking in those terms at the time, that writing a book is a very good way of promoting yourself, of raising your profile, but also kind of establishing a kind of brand. So so that's what I did. And then I had a few years writing novels. Sorry.
You've written 11 books in all.
I've written 13 books, 13. Actually. Now, yes. Yes. So yes. I also very much enjoy writing of all kinds. So that's what's kind of is the thread that runs through probably most of my strange career.
And hence being a publisher now.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So yes.
So how did you and Joe meet initially?
Well, we met initially because I wrote a book called The Real Secret, which was a self-help book, and he published it, and we didn't know each other at all. And then we realized that actually we lived quite close together. We're both in Norfolk. So we met at a networking event, strangely enough, and I realized that he had recently lost his business partner. I don't mean she left. And I thought, well, actually, that's interesting. This is very interesting. I really enjoy publishing, and there are some things here that I could add to the mix of what Joe was doing. So we started working together, and I became his commissioning editor at Bookshaker. And then we came up with the idea of doing things slightly differently. We kind of rethought the publishing business model, and we started Rethink Press together. And as I say, that was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, we had a website, we had a name, we had a few clients and a few books in production, but none had been published. So that's what we were just reminiscing about the other day, where we started.
And you rebranded recently. So what was that about?
Well, we had built the Rethink brand without a lot of professional branding input. So Joe comes from, Joe is a graphic designer and also has a marketing background. And I suppose I like to think I have some kind of creative ideas around visuals and graphics and things. So we kind of put our brand together in a slightly ad hoc way. And we had, well, in fact, we came to you to register, to trademark some of our visuals, in fact, and the name Rethink Press. But we hadn't really done the whole branding picture. And we really felt that after sort of, 9 years as it was, we needed to pull it together. Things had changed. We were a very different business to what we were when we started. So we thought it was time to have we started with the idea, we'll have a new website, and then we realized we needed an entire new brand to go with it. Okay. So that's what we did.
So what actually changed?
Well, kind of everything changed in a way, from our logo to the way we presented ourselves. And actually it was a surprisingly deep and rigorous process. I mean, I thought we'd probably just have a chat with our key branding person, and they'd go away and come up with some ideas. And in fact, there were two sides to it. We were working with two key people. One of them, Kieran, was doing the words, and the other one, Simon, was doing the visuals. So we had Joe and I had a number of quite lengthy Zoom, because it was sort of going through lockdown and everything, so we had quite a number of lengthy conversations with them, where Kieran especially was very good. It was a bit like therapy, actually, to be honest. We were kind of going through our vision and our values and our different personalities, and Joe and I are in many ways like chalk and cheese. So they wanted to well, I mean, we share the same vision and values, but sort of personality wise, we're quite different, and I think that's why we work so well together. But they wanted to kind of have both sides of that represented. So we had to sort of talk about ourselves and our backgrounds, and how we saw the business and what we wanted for our authors and our clients, and it was very interesting, because I'm quite kind of controlling about words, I suppose. I like to have the final say on the way things are written. But actually, Kieran went away and wrote stuff that I would never have come up with. And we came up with really kind of brilliant strapline, which kind of sums up our business. But I don't think either of us would ever have come up with it. So it's now, nothing sells you like a book, ... and no one builds a book like Rethink. And that kind of now runs through everything. Whenever I give a talk or do training about book writing or mentoring, that's the kind of basic premise that I work from, and that I repeat over and over again. And it really that's been really enlightening in a way. And I suppose the whole thing was rather enlightening. So finding out how other people saw us.
So nothing sells you like a book, and then what?
And no one builds a book like Rethink.
Oh, interesting. I like the fact that you've got your name in it, Rethink. I'm just immediately thinking like a lawyer, and that you can,
oh right,
because it's got Rethink in it.
Yeah. Oh, right. So I'm glad that you approve of that, because I hadn't up till that second. I hadn't thought about the legal implications of. Well,
if it's something you use a lot and make a lot of and want to become recognized by, then obviously if you can protect it, that enhances your ability to stop other people using.
Right. So are you suggesting that we should actually trademark that phrase? Okay, well, I'll come back to you on that one, Shireen. Thank you for that free advice.
So did you also, have you come up with a totally new colouring?
Yes, we have, absolutely. So I mean, we started off, we had a logo or a kind of colophon really for our logo, with Rethink with a capital R and an E backwards, so it fitted into a nice kind of box that we could put on the spine of books. And that was, we thought blue was the color we wanted in the first place, so we had quite a lot of 10 years ago we were very much a blue kind of colored Rethink. And then we then we wrote a book called How to Write Your Book Without the Fuss, which was our signature book, and that had a very orange color. So then we turned our kind of logos orange and went orange and black and white for a bit. And so now our new colors are completely different. And the logo itself, I mean, we've got a new typeface, we've got a new, sort of full length Rethink logo, and also a little RE logo. And the colors are completely different. We've got a sort of what I would call a dark greeny, bluey, petrol-y color, and a very pale blue, and a salmony pink, and kind of a few colors in between. And it's completely different. And I love it. Yes, we both do, I think.
So the E is still backwards, or not?
No, it's not. No, we now have, actually, we have Rethink spelt with the, it's upper and lower case, and the E is slightly elevated. So it's RE, and then think, the kind of normal size, because it sort of represents what we wanted to get across somehow, was that the book elevates our authors. So the E is elevated. I don't suppose that comes across to anyone literally as they read it, but that's the feeling that we want to get over.
So you thought about your vision, mission, values. So what do you stand for, do you think, as if you had to choose 2 or 3 words to associate with your brand, what are they? How are you different from other publishers who...
I think the word talking about building books is very important to us, because we not only, unlike most other publishers, we not only have, take manuscripts and publish them and produce books, we also have a big coaching team. So we actually start from the very beginning with a lot of authors from the book idea, and we help them plan and write their book. And we see that as building a book from the ground upwards. So our writing program, our Write Your Book in 90 Days program, is called Book Builder. And so it's, and our book, we actually have a book that has the same name. So Book Builder is the name of the book and the program, and it is kind of our concept. We build books.
I must say, that resonates with me, because you helped me with my proposal at one point when I was thinking of getting it published, and the ideas you introduced I hadn't thought of, was to try and show in the various chapters exactly what my framework was. So this sort of idea of building a book is definitely something I got from you very much, and in the way you gave feedback and helped. So yeah, that's great that you've managed to hone in on that.
Yes, I mean, that's very much what I mentor authors through a very specific process, because I think that just makes it so much easier. I think people are often overwhelmed by the idea of writing a book if they've never done it before. It seems a huge piece of work, and a kind of rather like a big amorphous kind of task with full of strange things that they don't quite know how to do. And what I think what we're both, Joe and I, are both good at is chunking things down into manageable steps, and also we love creating models. So we have the writer process, which is an acronym, and the author model, and the 3 Ps of positioning. So to position your book. So we go through all those when we're mentoring people, and I think it helps to be able to envisage things in that very clear way.
Yes. So I mean, were you thoroughly clear about your mission and values before you went into the rebrand, or how did that help?
It clarified it. I think we knew what we were doing and what we wanted to do, but actually talking it through with someone else who was going to create the words for us helped us to clarify it ourselves. So we have we stand for, I think, Rethink, the name, stands for innovation. We were a bit disruptive in the industry, and we want to continue to be so in terms of the publishing model for the kinds of authors who we work with. We want to embody integrity and ambition, really, to get, to help our authors. I mean, we rate our success on the success of our authors. So the building a book is about creating a tool for business. I mean, it's got to be a good book. It's not just a kind of fancy business card with, in book format. It actually has to be a really valuable and good book, and very well produced and professional. But it is about helping to create books that enable our authors to use their book to really build their businesses. And the more kind of great stories we get about how that works for our authors, the happier we are.
Yes, I remember when I sent my proposal for my previous book to you, you said, "You're not writing a brochure." And it's just so easy when you're thinking about writing a book to just be promotional, and not have a clue about actually how does it land with somebody else. And I'll never forget that.
Well, good. Well, I think good.
Yeah,
I mean, that is a very strong sort of ethos we take through not just the writing, but the editing of our books. Our editors are all trained to spot too much salesiness. So, because I mean, the important thing to remember is that a book is, I mean, it's an iconic product, a book, and you don't want, as an author, to undervalue that, to devalue. I mean, some people are paying for your book. We, suggest that people give away a lot of books because that gets the book into the right hands, to get new clients and partners and all that sort of thing. But, people are paying for your book, and they don't want to think that they have actually bought, a glorified marketing brochure. So it's really important to give valuable content. But there are ways of doing that that will really enhance your brand by putting in case studies like you do in your books, and telling your own story, which is again kind of like the brand story that is so important and so many people talk about now. So yes, but value is the name of the game, and that's what we want to be. That's what we want to be known for: producing valuable books.
Yeah, I find that people keep writing books. They don't stop at one. I wonder why that is. I mean, if they're doing it for their business and they've written one book, why do they go on to write others?
Well, you can answer that, Shireen. You've written a few books. Why did you go on?
Well, I think, writing really does help you to think more clearly. And I have a need to actually write in order to develop my ideas and thoughts. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what I think. Literally.
No, completely. No, that's exactly how I think there are two kinds of people. The people who think as they speak, they develop their ideas through talking them aloud. And there are people like you and me who develop their ideas through seeing them written in words on a screen or wherever. And I'm completely like that. So I really don't know what I'm thinking until I've written it down. And then it suddenly, but yes, I mean, the actual act of writing 30 to 40,000 words about what you do or your beliefs or whatever it is, your model, your process, is incredibly clarifying. I mean, it gives you fantastic clarity about yourself and your business and what you do. And often, I mean, people actually will pivot their businesses because the process of writing has been so illuminating to them. So yes, I think there are those people who just get into the actual act of writing and love doing it. But also, I think businesses progress. I think it's important to if you love books and your book has done well for you, then to either do a new edition or to write another book to keep your market up to date with your thinking and what you're actually doing. So yes, I think, I mean, but a lot of our authors do only write one book. It is their signature book and that's it.
Okay. So during this rebranding, did you have workshops? I mean, how did it actually work for you to give your input so that the designer and the copywriter could produce their bit?
Um,
How did the whole thing work?
Yes, well, I suppose they sort of were workshops, so we didn't call them that. We just called them calls. So there were 4 of us involved. And we did share things with our team. Then Joe and I would go away and sort of share things. But it was mostly, me and Joe and Kieran, who, as I said, who did the words, and Simon, who did the visuals. And we would either sometimes just talk to one of them. And Joe was sort of more in charge of the visuals, and sometimes had calls with Simon Simon and him. And sometimes I would just talk to Kieran. And then it would all come together, and it was actually a very long process, and more in depth than I thought it was going to. Well, it probably, before we actually got the website actually up and running, and it probably took about a year, which it possibly didn't need to take that long. I mean, it may have been that, this was, I don't know, having 2 of us and kind of working through a lot of stuff took a long time. But we used a lot of the kind of collateral on the way before the website was finished. So we started using the branding colors and the fonts for marketing kind of before we'd actually finished. I suppose the website was the longest thing, and the most complicated thing, because having a lot of books on a website is quite, just the technology of the website is quite difficult when you're a publisher.
Yeah.
So perhaps that's what took so long. But yes, it was an iterative process. But once we'd got the visuals in place, and the colors and the fonts, and we were able to then use them for slide decks and presentations, and social media. So sort of, and then we'd sort of start using our strap line and bits of the writing for the website. So yes, it was quite long and involved, and as I say, it was a bit like sort of therapy, really. Kind of but it was mostly very enjoyable. Sometimes it was frustrating, but it was certainly interesting.
So it was the need for a website that brought on the decision to...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And the feeling that, by this time, our so-called branding, our kind of, internal branding efforts had become a bit tired and unfocused. And, we had several years worth of different, we'd sort of done certain things at one stage, and then we had another set of graphics that went with another kind of period, and then we'd moved on from that and started using a different name for something. So we needed to coordinate everything that we did in one branding look and feel.
So what advice would you have for a business that's sort of looking to rebrand? What should they do to prepare themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think be prepared to sort of dig deep, because that's really important. I mean, I think we all of us, I mean, Joe and I, but also the whole Rethink team, feel that we've got a really strong, coherent brand now. But it did take, it did take work, it did take time. I don't know that it needed to have taken quite as long as it did. That might have just been us. But, I think, be prepared to give a lot and really kind of unpack, your feelings and where you got to. I mean, this was kind of like, well, it was 9 years, but, it was 9 years of work that had gone into what we were doing. So there was quite a lot to pull together, really. I think also work with people that you feel a connection with, who you feel empathy with, and who you can be open with. I think it's important to, because a business and a brand is not just about what you do and the services. It's also, when you're a small business, it's very much about the founders or the CEOs or whatever you call yourself. And it's important that your personality or personalities get expressed in your brand. So I think you've got to be able to be open and sort of vulnerable, I suppose, in a way, with the people who are creating a brand for you, and trust them.
What made you choose the particular people you went with for branding?
Well, Joe did he talked to quite a few people.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a sort of, he actually put together a spreadsheet of what they could do and what their strengths and what he considered perhaps their weaknesses were, and the prices, of course. Mm-hmm. And we went through them, and this was sort of the result of our deliberations. I mean, it was, you know, this whole branding and marketing and the website falls under Joe's side of our business. Right. So he was kind of in control of that, but you know, we do kind of take all important decisions together. Sure. So also he knew Kieran before, so you know, he had a good relationship with him and knew what he could do. Mm-hmm. And it just, you know, in the end, you know, I just went with my gut, I suppose, and I guess Joe did too, and that's you know, it felt like the best decision.
Great. And then you went on to acquire or merge with Panoma.
We have, yes, that's yes, we have just kind of we've just released the news that we have acquired Panoma Press. We've joined forces with them. So Mindy Gibbons-Klein, who's run Panoma Press for, you know, actually longer than Rethink, but about, you know, she and Joe are kind of contemporaries, if you like, in the business publishing world, in terms of how long their businesses had been running. I mean, we'd always admired what she did. We were sort of I mean, yes, kind of always competitors, but, you know, very friendly competitors. And we have very similar, you know, we have the same client base, the same authors, the kinds of books that we publish are very similar. The values we have and what we aspire to for our authors. So when Mindy felt she wanted to, you know, get some more support and maybe not be so hands-on in the publishing side of it, you know, she talked to us, and it just felt like a really, you know, a really good fit. So yes, the two companies have now come together. Panoma will stay as an entity, all the Panoma authors, and there are hundreds, you know, there's a list of several hundred authors there.
Stay a separate brand.
They will stay as Panoma, published by Panoma, but in the future, the new authors will be published by Rethink Press, and we will, I mean, it's Mindy's got a great team as well, so it'll be really great to merge the teams and get all that, put all that expertise and knowledge and experience that Mindy and her team have, and put it all together with our team in one place, and hopefully build a stronger business.
Yeah, it's difficult merging two small businesses. So at least you've done your thinking.
Yes.
You know, through this recent rebrand, and that, you know, it should make it a bit easier for you.
Yes, I think that's right, actually. Yes. I mean, it's been really interesting to see how similar, you know, Mindy's kind of brand is put over as well. So that's it's not too difficult to you know, kind of make that merger happen. I mean, it's very complicated and all the bits and pieces of the business, but I think you know, overall we are looking to make this a bigger, better Rethink, and you know, Panoma will stay there as a brand, but yes, it will kind of come in under Rethink, basically.
Great. So what do you think is a key step for a business to take to ensure that it stays on brand, you know, as it develops and grows? What do you think is a really important thing for it to focus on?
Well, I suppose, and you know, you haven't paid me to say this, Shireen, but I suppose getting legal advice on your branding is really important. I mean, that was the one sort of piece of professional work that we did early on in Rethink was with you to make sure that that our name was safe. I mean, that was really important, because when we trademarked our name, we did find that I can't remember what it's called, the Schizophrenia Society. I mean, if you might, people might remember that there's been a mental health campaign called Rethink, and they sort of objected to us when you sort of put it out there, as you have to do. And we came to an agreement with them that if we published books on mental health subjects, that we would not put the branding of Rethink on the outside of the book. Which is fine. But I mean, I'm really glad we did that, because if we hadn't had that agreement and, you know, we'd published a book and, you know, and they had come to us and said, no, you can't use it, we're going to sue you. Well, that would have been, we might have had to give up our name completely. So that early piece of work, I think, is a really important thing to, I mean, you know, you talk so much sense and obviously legal know-how about the importance of a name and it being very specific and original, basically. So that was, and then we had some, you know, some graphic designs, because I think because the names of our models are quite generic, like the writer process and the author model, we couldn't really trademark them because they're too general.
But that's okay, actually. You don't want too many brand names. For a small business, the more brand names you've got, the more you've got to be able to market. So like the costs multiply. So having descriptive names that you can put, you know, Rethink Book Builder is actually quite a good approach, rather than trying to get trademarkable names for all your products. So I think that's a good strategy. You don't necessarily want trademarkable product names, just use Rethink next to them. Right, good. Okay, that's good to know. Yes. Well, it just reduces your costs of trademarking, of you know, marketing, because you're essentially building value in Rethink. You know, that's all your equity is going into that name rather than into several names. So I think that's great. That's good to know. Absolutely. So is there a brand, just finishing off, is there a brand that you particularly admire? And if so, why, Lucy? Well, in publishing, I think the iconic brand is Penguin. And it just goes back so far. And I mean, I'm not sure that their current branding is particularly memorable, but I think everybody knows the penguin logo, the little penguin in the circle. Everybody knows the stripy books, that the original Penguin classics. And although they don't produce books with covers like that anymore, I mean, I should have had it here, but I've got a mug with a room of one's own on it, the Virginia Woolf one, kind of in the penguin colors and stripes, and it's just, you just know it's a penguin thing, a penguin book. So I think they had fantastic designs in the early days, and they've capitalized on that classic look. And the penguin has kind of moved forward and always stayed with them, but it's still perfectly modern, so and contemporary. So I think they're probably one of my favorite brands. That's interesting. I'll have to look into them. It is very iconic, that sort of penguin symbol that they use. I love that. Yes. Great. Well, thank you very much, Lucy, for appearing on the podcast. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a really interesting and very fruitful discussion. Thank you for your advice along the way. Bye. Bye. That's it for this week. Do subscribe to the brandtuned newsletter to get weekly updates. I'd also love to get your feedback. Just send me an email to info@brandtuned.com. Finally, if you liked the episode, please do share it with your friends and colleagues and review it on iTunes or whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. If you leave us a 5-star review, it means more people will listen and we can spread the word much more quickly about the podcast. Thank you and bye for now.